Firstly, I think all of us should give really a great yashikoach to Rabbi Scheiner, Rabbi Scheiner. It's a very difficult day. It's a long fast, and to come down from up north to our community and really expend kaiches giving a shir today is not easy. It's quite an effort. Just by way of introduction, I think it's a wonderful thing. I mean, many of you have interacted with Rabbi Scheiner so much over the past few years. Rabbi Scheiner less so. But perhaps this will be the beginning of continued shiurim from both of them, together, apart. Both are tremendous Talmidei Chachamim. People who go to the shiurim, both in our community, up north, all over the city, derive tremendous hana. And I think what's really beautiful, on top of the knowledge and the learning, is the fact that everyone works together. It's Torah coming from two wonderful supporters and understanders and purveyors of Torah. And Yashikoach again.
Thank you, Rabbi Weber, Rabbi Tashina. I'll just echo what you were saying, that we stand today at a time when maybe many are focusing on the 10-15% differences among Orthodoxy, when in reality 80, 85, 90% we're the same, we stand for the same thing. And that's why all the sinas chinam? Why delve into the minute difference in the great shame? We are all one. Klal Yisrael is one, and if we focus on where we all have in common, maybe we'll be able to extradite ourselves out of this galus. And Tisha B'Av is definitely a time to focus on that. The last korban is because of sinas chinam, and it's wonderful to come together and do a shir together, and I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you. I would like to focus on a certain theme. We're here in this galus already 2,000 plus years. And I think we have a little bit of a retrospect. We can look back and view from a little hindsight. And I was recently in Yerushalayim just a week and a half ago. At Motzei Shabbos, not having much to do, I parked myself in the Churva Shul. Sit and learn. They have a yeshiva there now. And it was beautiful. And I was looking at the Aron HaKodesh, which goes all the way up. There's like almost like a double Aron Kodesh for those that were there. But on the side, it goes up. There's two birds. There's a yoina. There's an engraving of a yoina on both sides of the Aron Kodesh. And I met a friend there. I grew up in elementary school, who's been in the Rova in the Jewish quarter for the last 23 years, in Zolberg's Oilam. And so they daven there every morning. They daven their nets. That's their place where the yeshiva learns. So he was telling me that Reb Simcha Cook comes down every 4 weeks for Shabbos, as he's the official Rav of the Churva Shul. And he said over a fascinating thing. The Churva Shul, we know, was destroyed and rebuilt a few times. And he said, Simcha said that they have a Kabbalah from the Gaon, from the Vilna Gaon, that there's a Gemara in Brachas. The Gemara in Brachas says that Reb Yosi Pamachas Nechnasti Lechurva Achas, from the Churvas in Yerushalayim. He walked into a Churva. The Gemara says Eliyahu Navi came and waited for him outside to watch, because you're not supposed to walk into a Churva. You don't know what's hanging around over there. And waited till he davened, and then he came out. And Eliyahu Navi asked him, "What voice did you hear?" He said, "I heard a bas kol menahemes kiyoina." That's that's speaking forth like a yoina, it's making a voice like a bird of a yoina, that says, woe is to the father that exiled his children, and woe is to the children that are not in the father's table anymore. So, he said from the Gaon that this churva that he walked into was actually the same churva which eventually ended up being the churva shul, and that's why they put the two yoinas on the side of the Aron. It's just in fact. But the Gaon continued and said that it will be rebuilt shortly before Mashiach comes. It will be rebuilt permanently. We hope this time is the time when it's to be built permanently. The Yoina represents Klal Yisrael. As we find many times, the Yoina represents Klal Yisrael because it's faithful. It's the only bird that's really faithful to its mate. And Klal Yisrael is very faithful to Rebbeinu Shalom. And Rebbeinu Shalom is faithful to Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael, throughout the Golus, we're still here, and we're still keeping the very close connection we had with Rebbeinu Shalom from the time we were sent out of Yerushalayim until today. And Rebbeinu Shalom has kept us up in the Golus, as we'll see soon. One of the traits of a Yoina is that when it's wounded in one wing, the Medrash says it still flies with the other wing. It could take a hit. And it could still soar and continue going on its mahalach. And Klal Yisrael, throughout the ages, have gone through many trials, many almost devastations, where Klal Yisrael is almost completely destroyed, uprooted. And yet we find that Klal Yisrael is as strong as ever. Who would believe that so many short years after the Churban of Europe, that we're as strong as we are today, in so many numbers? We had someone speak recently in the Kollel, and he said that someone told his father that west of Pittsburgh there's not going to be a new shul built with the proper mechitza. That's what he said back then in the early 50s, and look what's going on today. You know, kashrus, what kind of organizations we have. What was it like then? How did we rebuild so fast? Chinuch, the moistus chinuch. I was in Yerushalayim. I was in Bnei Brak for a few hours, and every other building is a yeshiva, is a kollel. The place is built up tremendously in Yerushalayim, and here we are, a tremendous. The Klal Yisrael in a few short years had such a rebirth. It's not on a normal mahalach. We have to understand this. We have to understand the haftacha we have that the Rebbeinu Shalom is not going to leave us. Lo ma'astem, lo ga'altem, lo chaloisem, will always be able to rebuild. So the Gemara says as follows. The Gemara says that Moshe Rabbeinu said the Shvach, Hakel, Hagodol, Hagibav, Hanoiva. This is what we say in Shemona Esrei. We only say the Shvach, the praise that we know from the Nevi'im. We don't make up our own praises to Rebbeinu Shalom. Moshe Rabbeinu said those are Hakel, Hagodol, Hagibav, Hanoiva, so we say that. Yirmiyahu said that the Goyim, the Oivdei Avodah Zarah, and the Karkarin Behechol, the dancing around in the Heichel in the Beis HaMikdash, Ayei Noiroisam, where is the Noirois of the Rebbeinu Shalom? Where is it? So he took it out. He took it out of the prayers. He took out Noira. Because he didn't see a manifestation of the Noirois of the Rebbeinu Shalom in his days. It wasn't there anymore. The fear, Noira, refers to the Makam HaMikdash. Ma Noira HaMakam Hazeh. How fearful is it? Like we said in the Kinnis, that a place where a person couldn't go in except for the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. Nobody could go in and live. And yet the Goyim were in there doing all kinds of averis. Where is the fear? Where is the Noira of the Rebbeinu Shalom? So he took it out. Daniel took out Gevura. Klal Yisrael is in Golus. Where is the Gevura of the Rebbeinu Shalom? Of the Rebbeinu Shalom? So he took out Gibor. The Anshe Knesset HaGdolah put it back. That's why they're called the Anshe Knesset HaGdolah. They got their name for this insight they had, that they put back the two names, Hagadol, Hagibar, and Hanoira. Why? Because Klal Yisrael is still in existence. We're still around. The Gvura of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Where's the Noira? How is it possible that Klal Yisrael is still here? Rashi says, Miyoim Shechar Beis HaMikdash, it's being Niskala. It's first being revealed, the awesomeness of the Rebbeinu Shalom, the Noira of the Rebbeinu Shalom, that we are existing throughout this tremendous galus. This means because the Rebbeinu Shalom put his fear, put his Noira in Klal Yisrael that enables us to exist. I would like to explain that. I'll repeat what I heard from Rabbi Moshe Shapiro, Shlita. He says as follows. He says that Noira really refers to the one place of the Beis HaMikdash, the Kodesh HaKadoshim. We bring sources for this. That Noira, where Yaakov rested, was really the Makam of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. What was in the Kodesh HaKadoshim? The Oren Bris Hashem. The Oren Bris Hashem was something which we know the Kahanim would carry it, but really the Oren would carry the Kahanim. It would seem to the eye when you're looking that the Kahanim were actually carrying the Oren, but the Oren was Noises Kalev. Now what happened? By David HaMelech, what happened was that the Oren was on a wagon and it slipped. It looked like it was going to fall. So Uzi stuck out his arm to catch it. Vayimeseyu Hashem, and Hashem killed him. Imagine that. Here he's trying to do the chesed, the Sefer Torah is falling. The Oren is falling. So he sticks out his hand to catch it, and Uziel and the Rebbeinu Shalom killed him, because this was the biggest chilul. How could he think that the Oren would fall? The Oren is Noises Caleb. The Oren doesn't need him to carry it. Noira, Gibor, is strength. Strength is something which a Gibor could naturally, if someone has a battle, and in a natural way wins the battle, that's Gavura. Noira is a certain awesomeness which is beyond the Derech HaTeva. It's not it may be, concealed and hidden in Teva, but there's a Noira is a Mahalach the Rebbeinu Shalom has in this world, which is way beyond the natural existing. That when the Beis HaMikdash was here, Klal Yisrael lived on a whole different plane. There was Noira. There was a Makam Noira, where Klal Yisrael existed on a miraculous level. Now this was what was there. But then, the Goyim came in, destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, Ayei Noiraisav. So the Anshe Knesset Agdola said, no, you have to understand. There is still the Midah of Noira is still here with us, because this is how we exist. We don't exist in any natural way. I'll explain this a little further. We know that the existence of Klal Yisrael and Golus is not natural. Even Lahavdil, the non-Jews, understand this. When the German Kaiser challenged the French ambassador, prove God's existence to me. The ambassador answered, Your Excellency, the Jews. If the Jews are here, God's here. We know the famous quote from Mark Twain. The Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Persians rose, filled the planet, sound and splendid, and faded to dream stuff and passed away. The Greeks and Romans followed and made a vast noise. They were gone. Other peoples have sprung up and held the torch high for a time, but it burned out. And they sit in twilight now or have vanished. The Jews saw them all, survived them all, is now what he always was, exhibiting no decadence, no infirmities of age, no weakening of his parts, no slowing of his energies, no dulling of his alert and aggressive mind. All things are mortal but the Jew. What is the secret of his immortality? What is this? What is our secret? And Chazal discussed this. Hadrian exclaimed to Rabbi Yehoshua, how great is the sheep that is able to survive among 70 wolves, referring to the 70 nations. And Rabbi Yehoshua answered back, how great is the shepherd who protects the sheep among 70 nations. It's definitely the spirit the Rebbeinu Shalom gave within us to survive and to excel, even in a world which we technically should not exist. I have here a book from my Rabbi, Gershon Weiss. So he quotes here the words of Nicholas Berdyaev, a Russian historian. The destiny is too imbued with the metaphysical to be explained in either material or positive historical terms. I remember how the materialistic interpretation of history, when I attempted in my youth to verify it by applying it to the destinies of the other people, worked. But it broke down in the case of the Jews. Their destiny seemed absolutely inexplicable from the materialistic standpoint. And indeed, according to materialistic and positivism criterion, the people ought to long ago have perished. And this is what we know. But it's still, we have to understand this. So the Rebbeinu Shalom gave us this promise that we will exist. And He implanted it in us. And to the point where sometimes we've reached such devastation. The Gemara in the end of Makkas, the famous Gemara, we make a see, we read the Gemara, Akiva Nechamtani. So the Gemara says there at the end of Makkas that Rabbi Akiva was walking with other Tanoim, and they came to the Mokam HaMikdash, and they saw a fox walk out, and they cried, and Rabbi Akiva laughed. And the Gemara says, there's two Nevuos, there's the Nevuah of Zechariah, the Nevuah of Uriah, and the Nevuah, one Nevuah states that the land, the Mokam HaMikdash will be plowed over. So Tzion is going to be nechrash, like a field, it will be plowed over. And the other Nevuah states that the Rebbeinu Shalom will redeem us. And there will be Oid Yoshua, Zakenim, and the Arim, B'Shel Yerushalayim, they're going to still sit there and be there. So Rabbi Akiva said, when one Nevuah comes true, the other one would come true. What does it mean it's plowed over, Yerushalayim is plowed over? That means that sometimes we're in a situation where the destruction is so great, the non-Jews try to get rid of it to such a completion that there is no zecher of anything left. We have today those that want to deny the Holocaust. What's the purpose of denying the Holocaust? They want the devastation to be so great that there is no zecher to any of that devastation around. And they've tried it many times, the non-Jews. And to some degree it seemed that it may have worked. There's no question that there were millions of Jews killed in the Holocaust. There's also no question that there were millions, if not more, Jews lost in assimilation over the last 300 years. You know, there's an old machloikis, if when Mashiach comes, if every Jew will be returned, like when King Meit Seischem Me'eretz Mitzrayim, when he went out of Mitzrayim, it was only a portion that survived. The rest were left behind. They were buried in the days of Choshech. So some hold that in the times of Mashiach is the same thing. It's only a portion of Klal Yisrael will be redeemed and taken to Eretz Yisrael. Others say no Jew will be left behind. Hanidachim Be'eretz Mitzrayim, Oevdim Be'eretz Ashur. There are different midrashim which support either one, but maybe Elu ve'elu. Look, not everyone. There's definitely many families in Klal Yisrael which are totally, completely lost. Their children are not Jews. Assimilation, the children are not Jews. It's a broken link of Klal Yisrael. And there are maybe everyone who's left today, after all the persecutions and after all the assimilation, maybe we'll all end up back. But there's no question that we've gone through tremendous loss. And how do we understand this? Put a perspective on it. In hindsight, that now, today, Baruch Hashem, Klal Yisrael is thriving, and it should do so until Mashiach comes. So the Mefarshim say, this is based on Rav Dessler. He explains that every dor has its nisayon. Every generation has its challenges. The Every generation has its Scheiner, and there's a battle. And many battles we have won, and many we have lost. But the ultimate gain is the war. We could lose the battle as long as we win the war. We want to win the general war. So he explains, just back it up with something that I heard from Rabbi Yaakov Hillel. He says that when we go through the generations, from the time of the destruction of the first temple, so at that time, what was the Avodah Zarah? Gemara says, what was the Churban for? Avodah Zarah, Shvichas Damim, Gili Arayis. Today we don't have any question. It's very clear. The lines are quite drawn. There's Rebbeinu Shalom on one side, and then there's Avodah Zarah. Shvichas Damim, everybody knows it's wrong. Gili Arayis, there's no question what's right and wrong. But the Yetzer Hara was so strong that Menashe told Ravashi in a dream that he would pick up his kapata and run through the mud to go do Avodah Zarah. It was wrong. They all knew it was wrong, but there was a strong Yetzer Hara. That was that generation. Go through Nach, you see the Klal Yisrael as a whole maybe did not pass the Nisayan. Maybe as a whole they didn't pass the Nisayan until the Anshe Knesset Agdola got rid of the Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zarah. Go another generation, go a little further, the second Beis HaMikdash. The Yetzer Hara out there was Christianity as a break-off of Judaism. The Muslims also believe in there's one God. And then you go a little further, you have the Tzedukim. The Tzedukim were from Klal Yisrael themselves. They didn't believe in Torah Shabbal Peh. Incidentally, the second Golus that we're in is a Golus Keneged Torah Shabbal Peh. The Yetzer Hara is always against Torah Shabbal Peh. That's where we stand. Ever since the destruction, the Tzedukim didn't believe in Torah Shabbal Peh. And you go a little further down the generations, it gets closer and closer and closer. We have within our own movements, we have people that try to destroy Klal Yisrael from within. They get a lot of help from the outside. But you had the Reform movement, you had going through further. So the Avodah Zarah, the Yetzer Hara, is not necessarily something of Avodah Zarah which is way out there. Everybody knows it's wrong. The Yetzer Hara gets closer and closer and closer until Achros Hayamim, the end of days. The Avodah Zarah, the Goyin writes this in Evan Shlomo, the Avodah Zarah of the Achros Hayamim is the Erev Rav, whatever that means. But it's like you want to sift the flour. So first you get out the rocks, and then you get closer and closer until you get to the pure, fine flour. And that's what the Nisayan is. Every generation, we should keep strong to the Torah, to the Amunah, even through the winds of change, which has been hitting us. Now, we may have lost many of the battles as a whole, but there were always a few that kept and held strong. So Rabbi Dessler explains this, and I'll end with this. I'll give Rabbi Tue Jun a chance. That Dessler explains this, that if you take a look, for example, my grandparents grew up in the Lower East Side. My great-grandfather came over between the first two world wars. And he came over before the First World War, but the rest of his family couldn't come till after. So he had to rent a basement that he had to climb in through the window, because if you don't keep Shabbos, there was no job for the rest. That's it. Every week you had to find another job. And as a Klal Yisrael as a whole, Klal Yisrael lost many of its members during this period. My father was sitting talking to someone about it, and tears were coming down this person's eyes. He lived through the time and he remembered the Nisyonis you had to go through to keep Shabbos during that time. Who has a Nisyon today keeping Shabbos of that degree? That's not our Nisyon. That was the Nisyon of that generation. Did they win or did they lose? So Rav Dessler says, there may have many that lost. We don't know the Rebbeinu Shalom's cheshbon. But the Mesiras Nefesh of the few that held on strong is why Klal Yisrael is thriving today. Because they won the battle. They broke the Yetzer Hara, and then Klal Yisrael was able to move to a new phase. And then it built up with Siyata Deshmaya. Klal Yisrael took off very strong. Those of you might have read in the Kiddush today, Some have a minute to read at the end of the kinnis, the kinnis of the Churban Europa, the Churban Europe. And there's one from the Goin Rav Michal Ber Weissmandel. He wrote a kinna. He was well known. He lived through the Churban. He actually cut himself out of the cattle cars twice. Twice he cut himself out to get out. He escaped. And he was involved in saving thousands and thousands of Yidden. He had plans to save many more, but they were thwarted, some by outside, some by inside. It was a sad time for Klal Yisrael. So he came to America, a broken man. And he built the yeshiva nonetheless, and Klal Yisrael continued. So he writes beautiful words. If we remain alive on the edge of this Tahaim of blood, plant for us a seed of light. Why were we left over? How could the light of the Rebbeinu Shalom be replanted if by us it is dark? We have to sow the seeds, so it should be replanted. Then he says a fascinating thing. And this is a takeoff of the Gemara. I heard this from Rabbi Elias. This is a takeoff of the Gemara. The Gemara says that when the Akiva was being burnt, so he says, Rabbi, what do you see? He says, I see the Gvilim HaNisraf, the Sefer itself is being burnt, but the letters are being parchas ba'avir. The letters are in the air. Now this is a profound statement. Klal Yisrael may have gone through many tsuras, but the letters that were created, the neshamas, the or, the Torah, the emunah, what Klal Yisrael created remains. That can never be taken away. The outer clothing of your bodies were burnt. Where does this go? Where does it go? All this sav that will still remain. All it needs is a kli kibul. All it needs is someone to accept it. And the next generation of Klal Yisrael, this is what he's referring to. Wake up and give us the schus to return to them the Yerusha. Their Mesiras Nefesh that they put in is not lost. That plants the seed of light that the next generation has the ability to grow beyond any reasonable understanding. And this is where we are today. Our tremendous explosion of Yiddishkeit is only here today because of the Mesiras Nefesh of the previous generations. And this is what Dessler says. We may have, and many may have been lost throughout the generations, but they weren't lost. But Mesiras Nefesh that they put in remains with us today. So maybe this is a perspective that we could take with us when we're going towards the end of Tisha B'Av, going towards Asar B'Av, that we understand we're standing up to an Achama. We understand that what Rebbeinu Shalom does, we can't fathom the din, we can't fathom and understand the tsaros we went through. But we do know that lying within them is a nechama, akiva nechamtanu, is a nechama that this is all for our benefit, that we will thrive based on the Mesiras Nefesh of the previous generation.